G'day, everybody. How you going today? It is so good to see you. I do hope that you are super well. Today, I'm here with Mr. Everywhere. I tell you, he's a movie star, he's a presenter, he's an actor, he's an amazing YouTuber, Mr. Bobby Tonelli. Thank you for joining me in what we hope is going to be an ongoing series of us shooting the breeze and talking about the industry. And, we might even get beyond cameras and talk
We
about other
might.
tech because I'm a big nerd as well, beyond cameras. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Matt. How are you? Thank you for the
I'm
introduction,
great.
man.
I'm great. I mean, where I want to start is obviously this Red slash Nikon announcement. So if you're asking me how am I, I'm very excited. I get very excited about these things. And I was very excited 11 months ago when this announcement was made that there was this purchase. But
Yeah.
Nikon just went next level. And how did they go next level, Bobby? Talk to me. Like, what is going on here? This is
I
great
mean,
stuff.
I mean, obviously they bought, they took over Red. So we knew a Z mount something was coming. Was it going to be a new camera or what? Or are we going to see some Red technology go into, let's say, their, prosumer or, consumer oriented cameras, not the cinema cameras, but their first foray out, of course, outside of the LUTs that we got for N-Log was a now Z mount for the Red Komodo-X and the V-RAPTOR, which is pretty friggin' awesome.
For me, this is absolutely epic stuff in the sense of you've now got access to what I think we can all agree is a growing range of very high quality lenses in the Z mount lenses. Along with, of course, everything F mount. And I did a little Google before we started. How can I just a quick quiz and please answer in the comments below how many F mount lenses, like different designs of F mount lenses, one, do you think were made? And two, how many lenses roughly have been manufactured in total? Do you have any vague idea? Or can you just guess for me, Bobby? I
It's
have these numbers.
ChatGPT. It's probably hundreds of them, man. Hundreds of them. And
Correct?
but here's the thing I'm interested in on this whole setup, right? Obviously, you can put the lenses now on the Komodo and the V-Raptor, but the Komodo does have some sort of autofocus to some extent, or at least
Or
it
they
did with the
both do.
RF mount.
They
They
both
both
do.
do, yeah. So
Yeah.
how will it work? Will it be better now for the Z mount than it was on the RF? Because the RF was a little bit, I mean, we're talking it is okay, but you
Yeah.
couldn't run it. You could not run and gun with those cameras and doing it, right?
Yeah.
But how will it be with the Z mount? Have they improved that now? Is it going to be like using a normal Nikon camera? That's what's going to be interesting.
Well, that's a great question, and it's already out there, that information. They have already started to add some of the Nikon technology, which includes things like, the setting that changes the speed at which the focus reacts when you
Yep.
maybe move out of frame. That's now been added to Red cameras.
Nice.
And when you're shooting with Nikon lenses, also the how fast you want it to rack from
Ooh,
focus point A to focus point B. That has also been added, along with all of the function buttons on the lenses now being fully programmable. That's been added. Also, very accurate iris, so aperture control. So
yeah.
what's amazing to me is they've already actually done a pretty significant firmware integration. I don't think it includes things like bird detect and plane detect and all. I don't
Right.
think
I don't
that.
think you need it. I don't think you need it for these kind of cameras.
That's a very good point, Bobby. That they are actually cine cameras, but there's a great channel which is worth a look for you and viewers called CVP, I think it
Yeah.
is. They've put out a video because they are the certified Red sales and servicing in the UK by the look of it, and they had a video out on launch just showing all of these features working, and they were just saying, look, the Z experience is amazing. The RF experience has been upgraded, but it's now not at the level of the Z experience. And they're just saying, what an amazing integration. So, look, it's very exciting, and
Yeah.
from my perspective, just this access to such an enormous range of lenses,
Hmm.
which also now, and this guy was saying it, he was saying, and now, of course, on Z, you can shoot Sony lenses, and that's a really big deal.
With adapters, right? With the adapters, you can put Sony
Yeah,
lens. Yeah.
of course, you'll need the adapter, but they've already, like, these guys must have everything. They'd already tested it. They already said it's working. They already said it's great. Interestingly, there's three different E to Z adapters, and they were already going, this one works better than this one with Red, but this one
Wow.
works better than this one on the Z, like the actual Nikon Z cameras. So, and then he's kind of going, so clearly this is just firmware, and this is just only going to get better. And this is just only going to get better and better. So you can tell I'm excited. I can hardly speak.
Yeah, no, this is great. I mean, this actually breathes new life into the Komodo-X, which was sort of, I felt, I mean, from friends of mine who were in the cinema industry getting cameras and, renting them out, the Komodo-X was kind of flatlining for a bit there because,
Cool.
6K, whatever the case may be, obviously you got a global shutter, but with the cameras out from Sony and the Nikon and other, Lumix, for example, they're really giving them a run for their money. Where in essence, you don't necessarily need a Komodo-X now, but with this Nikon integration, it does give it new life, I would say. The V-RAPTOR is always going to be 8K. That's going to be its own beast in its own right. But the Komodo-X was kind of like their more budget-friendly entry level into the Red family. But yeah, I mean, I think this is going to be very interesting to see how they integrate. If this autofocus does get better, you can throw in some nice ZS line lenses, or even the 51.4, the 35-1.4, whatever the case may have. You some, even budget area lenses from Nikon. This makes it very interesting, and it could. I mean, again, will there be like trade-in program? If you have an RF version, can you trade up to the
Yes.
Z version?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The answer is yes. That
Oh, you
was
can.
mentioned.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes,
Okay, so you're really on the ball with this. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it's already happening. So you can upgrade your existing cameras to
Wow.
the Z. And it
Wow.
was going to cost like $1,500.
It's
So
not bad.
I mean, because I think Red they were always famous for come in and we'll change your mount, no problem. I
Right.
think they've always done that, and amazingly they can now retrofit this Z mount into your existing. So you can go from I'm pretty sure they said you can go from any version except the original Komodo.
Okay. Okay.
And they'll upgrade you, but don't quote me on that. If you own one, go check.
I mean, Komodo X would make more sense because you go with the Komodo X. That's the most recent one. That makes more sense versus the older Komodo. So, I mean, and most of the people they probably upgraded to the X or they've already sold it off. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But look, clearly Sony are a powerhouse when it comes to everything video. They've been in the space a very, very long time. I mean, they were making video cameras and television broadcast cameras kind of before, back when JVC. Do you remember JVC and
of course.
Those sort of companies back in the 70s and the 80s. So
yeah.
And I mean, I actually think that now the A9III and the Komodo-X are kind of competitors. Interestingly,
they are really. Yeah.
they're both 6K. One's Super 35 and one's full frame. But besides that, there's only $1,000 difference in price. In US dollars, it's 599 versus 699 and 999, 3 nines, not 699. And so I actually think they're competitors now, which is really quite interesting. And obviously they do different things. Like there's some pros and cons of each. Like one is obviously it can be a stills camera as well, right? The A9III, fantastic. Whereas the other one maybe has better internal RAW and, well, I don't think the Sony does have internal RAW, but it's got internal RAW and great color science and compression.
Sure.
And so you can see how the Sony's been competition for some creators, especially at this entry level where you might want the Swiss Army knife camera.
Yeah, and also better handling of ISO. I mean, that's the one thing when I was testing the A9III, I showed, because there was always this talk about the ISO performance on it is very high. People were complaining about it. Obviously, this is one of the limitations of global shutter at this point in time, at least when the A9III was launched. And obviously with the Red cameras is lower light performance, not fantastic. But when I showed the files to my friends who shoot with Red, Komodos, V-RAPTORs, all that, they said, actually, this is really good for a global shutter. This is actually really good. So they said, I don't know what people are complaining about, but they probably not shot with Red to understand the difference of how this performs. And I think the A9III is a very viable option for people out there that want to go global shutter, that want a video camera, but also a hybrid. But I have to say this Komodo-X, which I think probably most people would go for in the marketplace. I mean, if you want a V-RAPTOR, you're obviously going to be doing this for either you're in cinema or you're going to be renting it out, and the price point's much higher. I think this makes it very interesting to see what Nikon does with the Komodo-X, and will this kind of boost sales again, kind of like what Blackmagic did with their full frame, entry level, entry point with the L mount. So I don't know. We'll see how the market fares.
I wonder whether it sort of also opens it up to like, a whole lot of people who own F or Z glass, and they kind of go, oh, well.
But the question, Matt, the question is, are you going to get a Komodo-X with Z mount?
I'm thinking about it, yes.
I know you were.
Yeah.
I saw that look in your eyes. I'm thinking, Matt is going to be shooting all his videos on a Komodo-X with Z mount very, very soon.
I might.
The order might already be placed.
No, no, because my wife might kill me. But yeah, I'm thinking hard about it. I was actually thinking about it this morning and thinking, because there's nothing. I'm pretty sure there's not things like in-body image stabilization, and
No, there's not.
I love in-body image stabilization. But then,
How many cameras do you have, Matt, that have in-body stabilization?
how many do I have? A lot.
Exactly. You could let one go,
I could.
and that could help fund the red Komodo-X. I'm
Plus,
just putting it out there. I'm just putting
no,
it
I'm
out
with you,
there.
man. No, it's a good point. I should sell my Hasselblad, my very old, like 10-year-old Hasselblad that I just don't use anymore.
Which one is it? Which one?
It's the H4D. Is that what it's called, or the
Ooh.
4HD?
Yeah. H40.
So
Yeah,
it's the
nice.
real, the real large sensor.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
not the XH. What is it? The XHD. What is it? The XH.
X2D, X2D.
That's
The
what I'm
X2D.
trying to say.
Yeah.
It's
No
not,
worries. No worries.
It's the ones that were before that, like the original
Yeah.
actual medium, like a Phase 1 sort of.
Right.
It's
The
over there
true, the
behind.
true size medium format sensor.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful camera, but it's a CCD sensor on that beast,
Wow. Beautiful.
which has some pros and cons. Something
Yeah.
I didn't realize, Bobby, and I don't know if you know this, and please correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, but I'm pretty sure CCD sensors are global, but they've got other issues. In other words, they exposed all at once, but they don't shoot.
Yeah.
They don't shoot fast. Like they don't have high frame rates,
Yeah.
but they expose all at once. Like this camera shoots
Yeah.
a astonishing 1 frame per second. So
there's some cameras to this day that are not far off from that.
so it's global, but it's not. It doesn't do video, so it's not
Yeah.
global in the sense of
Sure.
what we're talking about here. But anyway, we've gone down a rabbit hole. But no, that's a good point. You've made a good point, and yeah, all right, I'll think about that.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Next video, I want to be seen shot on the Komodo-X Z mount.
And which astonishing Nikon lens should it be the 35-1.2?
It has to be 35-1.2. It has to be 35-1.2.
Because
And you have to do
today we're on the
35-1.2.
35-1.8 because I don't have the 1.2 yet. I've
that's okay.
put in
Well,
my order, but it's coming.
Yeah. Okay.
And speaking of lenses, because that's the red news. We're very excited. It's a brave new world, and yes, hopefully Nikon is expanding their place in the universe, and of course they're going to hopefully attach more lenses to sales. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. But talking about lenses,
Yeah.
I believe you might have spent some time with one of these very highly reviewed. Even people like Gerald Undone was excited. The Viltrox 135 1.8 Lab. Talk to us.
Yeah, man. That's a hell of a lens, man. That's a hell of a lens.
Yeah.
This is it's a big step for Viltrox here. This is a big step for just third-party manufacturers. I mean, obviously we've had Sigma, Samyang. There's a lot of players into the game, right? Tamron, et cetera, et cetera. But for Viltrox, who coming in at a price point that is less than 50, I mean, more than 50%, I should say, off.
It's like
from
30%,
retail.
something like that.
I mean, compared to the Plana or whatever, what Sony's and Canon's versions. And the optics are unbelievable. Unbelievable. I mean, it's a big lens. This is not a light lens, 1,200 plus grams. But my God, the image quality out of this. Because I saw the videos. They sent me the lens for review, but I was filming a movie for a month in December. So it was just sitting here. I couldn't do anything with it. And when I came back and I put it onto the camera, I was like, oh my God, how gorgeous this is. The image quality, it just resolved 60 megapixels, 50 megapixels, like nothing. It really surprised me. How about you? Have you played around with this thing?
Well, I might have received one, and yes, I too am very impressed. I've only just started to play with it, and I pointed it. I did the first test that I can do very quickly by just stepping out my front door, which is to point it towards the sun between the leaves of the tree, and get the leaves in focus. And I've been using this same tree, those same leaves. All right, they do fall off, and we get new ones for about 8 years now. Whilst I've had, or 6 or 7 years while I've had my channel.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of chromatic aberration in my time, but this lens didn't see any, none. And I'm like, what is this black magic going on here? Yeah. Very sharp, very fast. I can't wait to share with everybody, what are Viltrox doing here? And of course, we all know on their roadmap, they've got the 50 lab, they've got the 35 lab, and I think there's an 85 lab, and they're all 1.2s, right? And
this is going to really shake the industry up. This is going to shake it up in a big way. It's going to be a big shake up.
Imagine your budget filmmaking kit, and you've got your Komodo-X or your A9III, and then you've got some, a kit of lab lenses versus you and I know, maybe not everybody knows, but the Cine lenses cost $15,000,
Yeah,
$25,000 each.
yeah,
I'm sure they're not at the same level, but if you're an independent filmmaker and you can get fast lenses that autofocus,
yeah.
and that's the cine space, let alone the photography space. Like it's yeah, it's a crazy time, and I don't know when Viltrox very first started. I did a bit of googling, and they're like 12 or 15 years old.
2007, I think it was, and they were doing lighting and other equipment, and then they
Ah,
kind of got into the lens game a bit. But I mean, having to say, I mean, obviously we're on this side of the world, so we have access to a lot of these manufacturers from Asia, China, respectively. But the speed of development, how better they get every release is quite fascinating. I know some people in Europe and America will get some of these lenses from time to time. I mean, Viltrox they were heavily promoting this lens because I think they knew they were onto something special. But I mean, we've been seeing this growth in this market space, and it's fascinating, to be frank with you. It's going to challenge everybody to up their game, and also price points wise. Like if you've got, let's say, this 135 1.8 lab series for E mount. Now, if they come out with another mount, let's say if they do Z mount or RF mount or whatever have you, they join the L mount alliance. What is that going to do for those respective lenses in those categories? Are they going to have to go, wait a second? I mean, obviously, native is native. People will buy native for the sake of it, and obviously, there's warranty and trust. Just the factor of trust there because it's like Nikon or Canon or Sony, respectively. But if you're okay to sort of venture out into the wild west, so to speak, or wild east, I mean, yeah,
yeah.
it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a fun time.
Yeah, I mean, you start to wonder, what ends up being the difference at the top end, and
Yeah,
I really look forward to trying to understand. Is there
yeah,
a difference? How big is the difference? What is the value proposition for the OEMs? What are they going to give us? They're going to give
yeah,
us maybe better warranties. Yeah, sure, maybe the builds are ultimately better and stronger, maybe,
yeah.
but.
I
And
mean,
I wonder how easy it will be to be able to tell at the end of the day for the average user. They use a lens 10 times a year, and they get 10 years out of it. And that's a great result.
a lot of days, a lot of people nowadays are more hobbyists. I mean, obviously you have the pros out there that are using it, but just based on my experience with this lens, I mean, it's built like a tank. It's really, I mean, it's as good as build as you would get from any other major manufacturer out there. The aperture ring obviously is probably not the most accurate when you're turning, and obviously it has this little OLED display on the top, which I never used because the lens is so big. I'm just looking through the viewfinder anyway. I'm
Yeah.
not doing any sort of zone focusing with this thing, and I'm not like looking at it. But it'd have been nice if it had a hard stop or an A mode that you lock it so you can control the aperture from the camera itself or turn off the aperture ring. That was one of my biggest complaints on it was that because I mean, because it's very easy to knock that ring as you pick up the lens to use it, and you're always having to double check your aperture. So hopefully in the future that I mean, because you can update the camera, sorry, you can update the lens via the phone app, which Viltrox doesn't talk about. So
Oh,
for those who are watching this video here and wondering how do you update it, because Viltrox comes out with a lot of firmware updates. Some are on desktop where you would plug the lens in and via USB-C to your computer, drop it on there, or you can do it through the camera system, or there's the phone app. And the 135, you do it through the phone app. So you sync it up by Bluetooth. So you either power it on via your camera, or you plug it into a power source by USB-C to the back of the back of the lens. That power is on the lens. You connect via Bluetooth and you update it that way. I would love to see more function controls there because you can do some stuff with it already with the function buttons, but not with that ring to sort of adjust to what that ring can do. It's a
wow.
very easy fix for them. I would love to see them do that. Maybe they will in the future, but yeah,
But
I'm
you've just
excited to see
blown
what you think when you play with it more.
you've blown my mind that you can do all of that through your phone. Sorry, you're
Yeah, through
saying
your phone.
and your
And I didn't
phone
know this.
via Bluetooth.
Yeah, so I didn't know this until when I first got the lens, right? When the first 135 1.8s, the first shipment went out. I think Petapixel did an article on this as well. They held off on the review because there was, I would say, a batch that wasn't really performing that well, right? So I thought I had one of those because the autofocus was really slow and inconsistent. So I reached out to Viltrox. I said, "Hey, look, this is the situation with the lens. What do I do?" "Oh, you have to do a firmware update." And I'm like, well, I'm on your website, but I don't see it. They said, no, you have to go through the phone app. Then you sync the lens, and then you'll see the firmware update. And but this is this is where I would say some of these lens manufacturers from Asia, respectively, they do a great job making lenses, but when it comes to support, maybe they don't have all the writing there and all the explanation there for us users to sort of find this out. So, I mean, big thanks to the Viltrox team for telling me this, and that's why I put in my video is please use the phone app because that will help you a lot.
It almost feels like they're content creators. You're so busy getting the content out that you forget to invoice people.
Exactly.
It's like us. We're just pedaling so hard to get everything done. Yeah, well, that's amazing. But are you saying there is no A position on the aperture?
No.
So you can't control it from the camera.
So you literally have to turn it all the way to the right till you get to F16, then you keep turning it, and then you can start controlling it through the camera.
Yeah. Okay.
But there's no lock. And there's no aim lock. So you can easily, as soon as you pick up the lens, knock it out.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So there is a position for it. It just doesn't state. Look, I've used a lot of maybe even some other Viltroxes, some of the more affordable Viltrox lenses do the same thing. That there is a position, but it's not locked there. It can be bumped out. And exactly. that is something that happens to me all the time. And I've kind of accepted it. Yeah, you've got it. Go get it, Bobby.
Yeah, let me just do this real quick here to make it easier. So
we'll go to the wall. The wall of cameras.
Yeah.
There it is. Look at that.
This is the ring right here, right?
Yeah.
And you would turn it all the way this way. There's no lock or stop. It just keeps going. So you have to look at this display or inside your viewfinder to see where it transitions. And then from there, you can go, okay. Yeah. So it's like that. So you go to you go all the way to F16, and then it'll go back to F4 on the camera. And then from there, you can adjust down to 1.8 and control it through the ring of the camera there. Yeah. So that's, again, I wish they would allow us more control on that. If they can in firmware update, it would make things a lot easier. Just turn it off. I don't even need it. Just control through the camera.
Is that an A7r V or an A1?
A7r V. I wish I had an A1, A7r V. But I don't know what it would be if they come out with another mount, but I will say here, as something I talked about as well, your hand hits on the base of this lens here because it's really close to the grip.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can see that there in the camera system.
Yeah, no, I can see you. There is no space there.
No space. So, I mean, if they do make another mount in the future, if it's Z mount, I mean, there's rumors of this Z mount or another mount. I wonder how that design will be and will it fit better or not? I'm not too sure.
I think as we've discussed offline before, I think it's some of it's the lens and some of it's the body. It's a bit of column A and B. So it might differ between manufacturers. But as soon as I find out, I'll let you know.
Yeah, let me know, man. If you find out, you never know. You have your ways. You have your contacts out there.
Moving in mysterious ways. Now, speaking of Sony, which you just had a beautiful one in your hand there, there's starting to be some noise in the world around us of some imminent Sony things.
Yeah.
Have you heard, you're a man who's connected in many ways. Have you heard anything or have you read anything on a rumors site?
I mean, obviously, Sony Alpha Rumors, we got, what is it, a 400 to 800, if I'm not mistaken, a new G lens, and then the new 16 millimeter. I mean, that's what I've seen. Obviously, there's the talk of the A7V, which does, the A7IV desperately needs an update to it. Now with the AI autofocusing chip, because the A7C2 and A7CR respectively have the AI dedicated chip that's inside of this for autofocusing, which the A7 IV doesn't have. So I don't know. I think if there's an A7V, which obviously that's probably going to come.
Well, it's 4 years now, isn't it? I think
it's 4 years.
4 years.
It's due for one. I would say they'll probably keep it around the same megapixels. I don't see an increase in megapixels, but probably a newer sensor. You'll probably see obviously the dedicated AI chip for autofocusing. You may see some better video features. Who knows? Maybe 4K 120 and just call it a day. Lock it in there. But
maybe they'll go to 6K. Like they could do it because the current one's 7K, but they don't let you have that. You just sample the 7 down to 4.
They may finally do open gate. You never know. This might be Sony's first open gate camera. I mean, these are just wishes of what it could be.
Yeah, we're spitballing here.
Yeah. But I mean, it'd be great to have open gate for Sony because that's something that they are missing. That Lumix S5 IIX, man, that is one camera that's just been, the more I've been using it, I haven't done a video on it yet, because there's been so many out there. But I mean, it's just been an enjoyable camera to use for the price point. I got mine secondhand. But open gate is awesome. Colors are awesome. This Lumix Lab and dropping your LUTs in there and getting your look right away out of camera. The autofocus is good enough for most things. Image quality's there. I'm like, the size is fantastic. They're giving Sony a run for the money. They're giving Sony a run for the money.
I mean, and what's interesting to me is how affordable, even new, they are.
Yeah.
Like here in this country, I think I picked it up for like 2.5,
Yeah.
and the A7 IV is like, it's still like 3.5 to 4 grand, right? So, and they sit in the same place in the market, and so Lumix are being really aggressive about it, but I just don't know how much market share they're managing to get with their full frame cameras. Anyway, yeah, I agree. As you know, I also own the S5 IIX, and I mean things like the in-body image stabilization, let alone the fact that it's got crazy levels of electronic. Just the mechanical one, I think, is best in market. It's the best of everybody's. So really interesting.
Yeah, I agree. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all turns out. But I think Sony's going to have a good year for this one. We may even see an update to this camera too. There could be an A7R VI.
Wow, I mean, it hasn't been that long, has it?
Over 3 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I mean, was it 2021? 2022?
I'm going to say 22. Just I feel like it came after.
Let's look it up real quick.
Yeah, look it up. Let's do it, Bobby. Let's show that we know what we're talking about by Googling.
Yeah, let's do that.
Because everything on the internet is real.
December 2022. So we got 3 years.
December 20. So it's only 23, 24. It's only 2 years and change.
2 years and change. So probably by end of the year, maybe we'll see one.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, but then again, never know.
Where do these high megapixel cameras go next? Like, do they go to 70? Do they go to 80?
I think 70 would probably, the 70 range would be the next phase into it, or 65. Because I get to a point where the pixel pitch that it just starts, you get to a diminishing point of no returns to it, right? Well,
there's diffraction and
all that.
There's also how do you actually get those those photons in there? And interestingly, because we've talked about the Hasselblad, but we haven't talked about GFX, and that 100 megapixel sensor that's inside all of the GFXs is actually the same pixel pitch as the A7R V and the A7R IV. They're the same sensor, and it's just physically larger. And, going beyond that, I mean, I'm pretty sure I saw that Sony made a 200 or a 200.
But wait a second. Is it the same sensor? Because if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong on this, I'm not an engineer, but these medium format sensors are true 16-bit, where the Sony's 14-bit, right?
What I mean same is it's the same pixel pitch.
Oh, gotcha.
I could be wrong about this, but I think not any sensor, but I think our sensors could be 16-bit. And the sensors in the medium format cameras could be 14-bit. It's just a decision to literally record,
if I see, speaking of that, maybe that's what Sony will do next if they come up with a new version, because we've not seen 16-bit in full frame yet.
No. And I think a lot of that's to do with the pipeline, because, if you go from 14-bit to 16-bit, you're actually adding an enormous amount of information, storage. It slows down the pipeline.
You got that CF Express now, you should be able to take it, right? I mean, it should be.
Yeah, I don't think the issue is the storage speed. It's the storage size, as in sizes get bigger, but it's the freeways. How much more information do you want on the freeways within the camera? The more information that's flowing, the hotter everything gets, the more battery you're using, and then and for example, you can see this being borne out with the Sony A1. Where at 20 frames per second, the files are 14-bit. From 20 to 30 frames per second, they're actually 12.87 or 13.14. They're not actually full 14-bit. And that's a really smart way of going, we're managing the fact that we're pushing through even more data, and we're making the files, let's just call it 12-bit in inverted commas, but that's saving us a lot of heat and overhead and processing, and it's really smart. Nobody cares. It's still a 12-bit raw file, right?
Yeah.
And so, like I said, I'm not 100% sure whether the sensors that we have in, say, a Z9 or an A1 can do 16-bit. They're just not programmed and wired to do it. But obviously, you've still got light coming down, hitting the sensor, and then it's going to say, this is, because all it's doing is measuring shades of gray, right? That's all it does. And then you have the color filter over the top, which is determining the color. The bits is just how many gradations are there between black and white.
I guess it possibly could just be is it a limitation for full frame, or is something that they, like you said, they haven't turned on yet? So I don't know. I'm expecting Sony to do something like that because, I mean, I can tell you the files out of the A7R V, which you've shot with, I believe, as well, are absolutely beautiful. And we've been hoping for, let's say, this sensor to go into, let's say, a Z7 III, right? If they ever come out with an update to that camera, or something of a higher resolution version versus 45 megapixel. Because these files are absolutely beautiful. Obviously, the downside is, it's a slower readout sensor. The shutter speeds aren't as fast on this, but I mean, if you want pure image quality, these are some of the best full frame cameras you can get right now for that.
In 14-bit, you have 16,384 shades of zero, zero to that number, black to white, which amounts to 14 trillion colors. That already seems like a lot, doesn't it, Bobby?
Right.
And then
it does.
And then let's have a look at what the number is when you go to 16-bit. 16,000 shades versus 65,000 shades of gray.
Massive.
And then I don't know. I won't even look at how many colors. But so it's just so much extra overhead basically to record that, and I think that's why we don't see it. And when you've already got 14 trillion colors potential with 14-bit, do we need more than 4 trillion? Do we need more than 4 trillion? It's a very big number.
Well, I mean, the differences you see on your files, I mean, especially for skin tones and people and clothing, I mean, there's a significant difference.
You're totally right. Like, we actually get it. So, okay, well, let's ask Sony, Nikon, Canon.
Yeah.
It's time for a 16-bit 35mm.
There we do. Let's go.
Now, let's jump over to anything else going on. We've talked about a lot of players. Is there anything else coming from Leica or Fuji? Anything that?
I mean, Leica released the SL3S recently, which is sort of an S5 II, S5 IIX in a Leica body. I think there is a lot of discussion out there. Is the price point for Leica, is it valid? But again, I always say this to people out there. It's like buying a watch. You buy a Rolex, you can buy a Swatch, you can buy, a Hamilton. They all tell time. They all do the same thing. It's a lot of it is brand prestige, also build quality, and it's also what makes you happy. So that was one thing that I noticed in my video that we get a lot of feedback. But it's an S5 II, S5 IIX. It's like, well, yes and no. There are some features that are unique to this camera system because it has CF Express Type B, so it has a faster pipeline for data. But yeah, it is very similar. That's one thing. GFX side, there's obviously the big rumor of the new GFX 100 camera coming out. Fuji Rumours has been teasing this a lot. I don't know what the exact name of it is, but obviously they're talking about it being a more compact camera, maybe a fixed lens. I mean, obviously a lot of rumors right now to that, which would make it interesting because they had that GFX 50R, if I'm not mistaken, back in the day, that rangefinder camera, which was very, very popular. People love that camera for the size and the portability of it. But the lenses are very big. So obviously you were quite limited on what lenses you could put onto it to give you the balance that you wanted. So if Fujifilm can do something like that with 100 megapixels and make it quite affordable and very enticing, they could have a hit on their hands.
Well, I mean, is the X100 VI still out of stock? I mean, Fuji.
No, you can get those cameras now. The hype has died down a bit. It's died down now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, I would say the camera that I found in that space that actually was doing, it's kind of got a second wind, is the A7CR and A7C2 from Sony, because they're small, compact, good price point, 160 megapixels, one's 32, and you can kind of make your own little Sony Q and rangefinder camera out of it.
Well, look, that's exactly what my mate Bruce has done. He owns a lot of Leica lenses, like maybe like 10 or something, and he's basically using he's got an A7R V, but now he's doing what you're saying right there. He's got the A7CR, and he's over the moon about it. He also talks about these conversions to make the glass the same as Leica glass. Do you know about that whole end of things?
Conversions?
So basically the glass, the glass cover that's on a sensor, all sensors have them. The glass on the Leica is the thinnest on the market. And if you want the lenses to perform exactly the same as they do on a Leica, you get that piece of glass changed from the Sony, which is a bit thicker, to the thinner Leica glass.
You can do that. I didn't know you could do that.
Yes. Google it. I think he calls it a Kalari conversion. I'll find a website for you. And it's not that expensive. It's like $500 or $600 or something. That will stop the wider lenses from distorting as much on the edges because it's to do with the thickness of the glass, which is amazing. Even thickness of glass changes things. Does that
Yeah.
make sense? Like, do you hear people talking about that, or is that because I know you're
You
in the
know,
Leica community?
No, this is the first time I've heard of this.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, when Leica talks about their sensors, they say they have micro sensors or whatever the case may be. So they're designed to work with M lenses as well as L mount lenses, obviously, to get the best performance. But a lot of people like to adapt Leica M lenses to Sony cameras for ease of use. If you want to use a tech art adapter, for whatever the case may be. So I've never heard of this yet, but I mean, if this is legit and it works really well, I mean, jeez, for $500, you've got Leica quality now.
Yeah, well, that's basically what he's saying, and I haven't researched it, but it's all logical. It all makes sense.
I mean, but you void your warranty for sure with Sony. That's it. Once you do it, it's over.
Yeah, I mean, I look. His argument was, I can buy, I don't know, what was it, like 4 A7CRs for the price of one Leica. So,
sure.
No big deal. Point. But I do understand as you said, it's like watches. I do understand that love affair with, I mean, especially the M. Like,
oh yeah,
they're legendary. I
mean, there's talks of speaking of the M, there are rumors of a digital or EVF-M, I should say, coming out. Now, there's something on Leica Rumors possibly coming out this year. There's been talks of this camera for a long time. Obviously, Leica probably, I mean, I don't know for any, I have no information on this, but they test a lot of different things to see what works and what doesn't. And somebody asked them years ago, why didn't they do with the X100 series from Fujifilm, with that hybrid viewfinder? They said they wanted the best optical experience if they were going to go EVF. So, and they felt like they couldn't do that with the M or that size body at that point in time. But I think now they probably could and exceed that. So I think it would definitely help the market. It would give a sort of a second life to the M. Whereas a lot of the customer base for the M is getting older. Eyesight's not as good. They need diopters, or they're using the VisoFlex, which is the digital viewfinder. And with that, when you get an EVF-M, you're now not having to worry about that, and you can adapt your lenses to it. A younger generation will enjoy it because they're used to seeing that way. Older generation can now focus, peak, and zoom in on your image. And I'm sure Leica can maintain the ethos and the design of the body just as well as the original.
That might be their single most effective move to kind of cross.
I hope they do it. I really do hope they do it. There's rumors of that, but we'll see. It's 100th anniversary this year for Leica. So it's a big anniversary year for them. So there's a lot of events happening. There's going to be a lot of cool releases, limited editions from what I understand. So you never know. Maybe something like that will come out and they'll say, look, 100 years, we're going for the next phase.
I think that'd be a great connector between, people like me and the hardcore Leica users, because I had a friend recently who let me play with his, I think it was an M11 and or a P, I don't know which one. It wasn't a mono.
Right.
And it's beautiful to use, and you can straight away feel the glass, you can sort of feel the glass, and you can see how it's working. But you are still working with that the rangefinder, which is very alien for someone who never really shoots. I was DSLR and SLR, never rangefinder. I mean, I've played with them a little bit, but no, that's an amazing step forwards. And a mate of mine, he's got the 90 mil lens, and he's like, I can't focus it, so I've got to buy the EVF, right? So there's stuff like that where it's, especially like a lot of these lenses, they're beautiful 1.4, 1.2 lenses, and it's like, how do you get the best out of them? Because these guys are often shooting at f8 just to ensure the subject's in focus.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing with these lenses, especially if you're going to be shooting film, you only 1,000 shutter speed on film for a rangefinder, so you have to shoot at f8 no matter if you want to go outdoors. Gotcha. But even if you want to use it for at f2 and beyond, you should be able to focus pretty well for f2. You know what I mean? For the most part, if you've got the diopter, if you need the diopter, or you've got the VisoFlex, which is their digital EVF, you should be fine. But f2 is pretty a good one. Yeah.
Once you've got the digital, I think it makes a big difference. It's all to do with the subject and how much they're moving and how far away they are, and is it a 28, a 35, a 50, or not? Like, of course, all these things come into play. Yeah. Amazing. Well, it sounds like 2025 is going to be big, Bobby.
It's going to be big. We just got to earn the money to get these cameras. That's the thing.
Now that's That's the issue. Well, speaking of that, can you tell us a little bit about probably what was a fun way to earn money making a film? Talk to me.
I mean, that was interesting. I mean, I've been doing some acting. Obviously, I've been doing it for a number of years. This past year in 2024, I did a TV series for China set in the 1950s in Singapore. And then this film was kind of set in the same era, but it's in Malaysia. We shot that there, kind of action packed, kind of silat and various different fighting styles. And it was fun, man. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. It was great to sort of, I mean, I let the channel go for a little bit, which is, had to build that momentum. You're like, oh shit, now I got to pick up and get back into the swing of things. But it was great to be on set, talking to the DPs. And now obviously we talk cameras and all this kind of stuff, is to actually learn from them and kind of put that knowledge we have and ask them their questions as they're like real working DPs and filmmakers. Why they choose this camera, why this series of lenses, how are they framing this up, what kind of lighting are they using? It was fascinating, actually. So, and the cool thing is that as an actor, once you kind of know these things, and when you talk to your DP and your director in this way, once they know that you understand their limitations and what they need to achieve, you guys are on the same page, and they're looking out for you and you're looking out for them. And there's a relationship on set that's really interesting and really great to have. So I would recommend for any host or actor, anybody that wants to get in the creative industry, know these various different aspects of what filmmaking is about, not just acting, but also what it's like to shoot a movie, what it's like, or you don't have to be a DP, but understand what they go through: sound, lighting, camera, lenses, understand what they want to capture. So if you can make their vision easier to get, they'll make you look the best that you can be. So yeah, that was what I learned.
That's great advice, and it must be kind of nice that you do your scene, and then they take a while to set up the next scene, and there's actually something else that you can talk about, which is you can just nerd out. You can nerd out on all the production stuff. I would do the same thing. That sounds.
It was great. We shot with Venice 2s with Rialtos as well. So I mean, when they have Venice 2s on set, it's But I know when we use it like Venice 2s and Rialtos on set, right? I mean,
what's Rialto? Sorry, you keep saying Rialto. What is that?
Rialto is okay. The Venice 2, you can separate it. So the Rialto is like the brain where you can kind of separate it. You can take half that camera, move around. So it's like the Rialto system, as they call it, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, that's what it's called, but that's sort of how it works. So they like the Venice 2 because obviously it has the built-in ND filters, so Sony's got that down pat. And obviously when you want to like do more action or you're getting into a tighter situation, you can separate the brain, the camera from the brain, and it has cables in the back of it. So that all works out,
It can basically be a backpack sort of scenario, can't it? Yeah. It's a very smart design, and I don't know which I like better, the DJI 4D or that. I mean, they're probably not quite at the same level in the market, but that's a really interesting. Have you ever shot anything with where that's been on set?
Yeah, we did it with the 4D. We had the 4D on set for this one as well too. So we would do some walking and action scenes with it. So they brought these, I think, Laowa anamorphic lenses on top of it. And it's a nice camera. It's heavy. I mean, you do feel the weight, but it's extremely steady. Very, very, very steady. So
it's basically got a steady cam built into it. And the fact that they're like 12 grand or something or 15 grand for an 8K full frame, it's pretty bananas, really.
It is. It's a fun camera to use. Like when I tried it, because I asked the DP, I said, can I try it? He said, sure, walk around and test it. And I was blown away by how stable it was, and the image quality is awesome. So, I mean, that's the cool thing, is when you're in this space and you're talking to them about that. So you know how they're going to shoot, and they'll show you the lenses and the focal length, and they'll tell you how they're moving and what's their limitations. As an actor or even as a host, like what you can do and can't do, and to kind of go back to what I was saying before, it just makes such a big difference.
All right, Bobby. Well, we've shot the breeze. We've had a bit of a think about what's going on 2025, first quarter 2025. Some amazing things with Nikon, with Viltrox. We're expecting exciting Sony things, maybe exciting Leica and Fuji things as well. I think there's a lot more for us to talk about. So let's catch up again next week. And next time you will find us chatting on Bobby's channel. And we're going to swap 1 week his channel, 1 week my channel. And we're going to try and make this a regular thing. We're both freelancers, so one thing about being freelancers is your schedule is never the same. One day you're working at night, and then the next day you've got 3 days off in the morning, and it's all over the shop. But we'll make it work, Bobby.
Yeah, we will. We will, Matt.
I'm committed.
We are. We're committed for it. CP Plus right around the corner. Lots to talk about.
Well, there you go, mate. All right. Well, it's absolutely been wonderful to see you, Bobby, all the way. Now, if you don't know, I'm in Melbourne, at the bottom of the planet, and Bobby's on the other side of the equator. He's in Singapore, and this is the amazing thing about technology. So it's been so great to see you, Bobby, and it's been so great to see everyone else. And I'll say it for the third time. We'll see you all soon, Bobby. I'll hand it over to you to say goodbye to everybody.
All right, guys, everyone, take care, stay safe, and we'll chat to you next week. All right, bye.
All right, ciao.